Welcome to Best Served Cold, a Ball Millennials podcast, where we drink wine and talk about crime.
Presented to you by Tama J and Laura Elise.
Hello.
Welcome to episode 2 of, still Untitled, because we had a title.
We had a name, and then we found out that there was another podcast with the name that we'd come up with.
Those fucks. Those motherfuckers.
So
back to the drawing board.
Yeah, name's still pending.
Yeah.
I like the concept we had. I think we should work around that concept.
Yeah. The I guess we won't talk about it because there's no point, really, because, like, why? But we're still trying to figure out a name for this show. And when this is uploaded and you are actually listening to it, it will have a name. So this whole discussion really doesn't make any sense.
Point.
It's a moo point.
A what? It's like a cow's opinion. It's moo.
It's moo. We were just watching, just to quickly touch on this video we were just watching. Our new thing is watching this YouTube series. Channel's called Architectural Digest. And
so good.
There was this house in the Hamptons. I was like, what was it?
39.5 million. Yeah. So 40 million.
And the dude was just such first world problems. Like
it's just weird, like weird flex after weird flex after weird flex.
He's got the family kitchen where he said the family spends 70% of their time, and all their meals are cooked by external help, and the help have their own kitchen.
I can play the exact...
No, it's fine. But so as the help does not intrude on the family kitchen. Like, what? How much money do you need? Where it's just kind of like it's not even really racism anymore. It's just like speciesism. Like, you're a different species to other people because of your money. I'm like, I don't want them in my kitchen.
I like that.
He also had limitations on how big he could build his house, and he tried to build it bigger, and the permit holders for the land that he was on wouldn't let him build it any bigger. Fucking hilarious.
It's just so strange.
I hope everyone enjoyed last week's topics, because they were very I find them interesting. I hope everybody
well, I mean, that's why we're doing this. Otherwise it would be really strange if we didn't find it
enjoy what we were doing. Yeah,
that would be a bit weird.
So this week we have some different topics, and following the sort of theme of different, I guess not polarizing, but different sort of topics each indivially.
Well, we didn't want to make this just
murder,
a serial killer podcast.
Yeah. Like as you can read in the, excuse me, I'm burping. We're drinking a lot of wine. As you can probably read in the description right now, we delve into things such as mysteries, cults, serial killers, things that were never really explained, anything really that falls under the true crime just category, I guess. We don't want to sort of limit ourselves, because then we talk about like 10 serial killers, and it's like, one is mundane, and then two, it's like, we have like 5 other people to fucking talk about then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot more than 5.
Yeah, but there's about like a couple dozen who are interesting. The rest are just like, I killed one person. And that's weird to say, but it is true. There's like interesting serial killers, and there's like the oatmeal killer who killed someone eating their oatmeal. Like, it's stupid.
Well, yeah, I think there's more than I think there's like hundreds of them, but yeah. I think it also depends on I think any story can be interesting depending on how you tell it.
True. And if we're 2 or 3 wines in, we can make a pretty interesting...
That's how you make this podcast even better.
Yeah,
just drink an entire bottle of wine before you listen.
Yeah.
And anything's interesting.
Our Thursday nights now, due to being in isolation, we've as you've probably heard in the last episode, is our recording night. So we get takeout. Yeah. We drink wine. A lot of wine. We talk shit. We talk a lot of shit. So Thursdays is the new Friday, kind of, I guess. Because Thursday,
I've always preferred Thursdays to
I
Fridays.
hate Thursdays, to be
I
honest.
love
so this
Thursdays.
really helps me because I don't like Thursdays.
Because for me, my reasoning is Friday is like the day that everyone gets excited about because it's the weekend. So for me, Friday goes really slow because I'm excited for the torture to be over.
Yeah.
Thursday is like that exciting, oh, it's almost the end of the week, only one more day kind of vibe. I don't know.
For me, it's I like to
I
have
like
the
Thursdays.
weekend last as long as it can. So then when it gets to that point on Friday where it's like now it's like the weekend, I have nothing to do the next day. It's like I like to have that maximum amount of time where I can just do nothing.
Yeah, I cannot stop yawning.
I know. What's wrong
It's
with
bad.
you? Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not good for a fucking podcast
Yeah.
when we're talking about like serial killers and mass murder and you're just going, this is fucking boring.
Anyway,
Let's kick on.
are you going to go first this week? Because I went first.
Yeah,
last
sure.
week.
I'll go first. So, my topic this week is in regards to the Heaven's Gate cult. So they go into different kinds of names, right? Most notably is just Heaven's Gate. But they're also referred to as the Heaven's Gate away team due to the patches they wore, Heaven's Gate cult, things like that. And they actually had a few different names during their life cycle of the actual organization.
Because that's how most cults start, isn't it? They start as like a business or like a rehab center or something.
It's like,
generally speaking,
it's like one or two people who believe themselves to be of a higher power, like they're the reincarnation of Christ, or they're a relative, or they're a prophet, and then a cult surrounds them.
Right.
So they start an organization, and then everything sort of stems around them. There's always one person. There's always a Charles Manson, There's always that one key figurehead. It's in Waco. It's in Heaven's Gate. It's in all these different kinds of cults.
Yeah.
And I can't necessarily explain why.
Adjusting your pillows there.
Sorry. I can't necessarily explain why, but I have a weird fascination with this one, Heaven's Gate.
You do actually.
Shameless plug, we have a song coming out, music video coming out on the 9th of May, and then the single is coming out on the 13th, which is a song that's not necessarily based on this cult.
Inspired by.
Kind of just uses imagery from the cult. Like the whole VHS thing, the weird ethereal space thing. It's kind of cool. That kind of aspect of it, not the mass suicide thing.
Wow, way to spoil the ending, Tama.
Well, I feel like most fucking people know about
I
this
didn't know
already.
about it until you told me about it.
What, the mass suicides?
Yeah, this whole cult and the mass suicides.
Well, that's the whole point of most of these cults, is they all have some sort of end game
Yeah, true.
where they want to kill themselves. Without any further delay, I'll kick into just to start off. I have a bit of an intro just about some general facts about them, housekeeping, I guess. So the cult was formed, like, I think in the 70s, but really became popular in the 1990s, specifically 96 and 97.
So it was around for like 30 years before.
Yeah, I mean, but it had different kind of names, which I'll get into later. But it was kind of like it was a different. It was always centered around this one man called Marshall Applewhite, who named himself Doe. That was his alias, I guess. But also in the cult, they had to be given different names to disassociate themselves with their earthly
Oh yeah,
bodies.
that's pretty common in cults, isn't
Yeah.
it? They get new names.
So he referred to himself as Doe, D-O. So that started in the 70s. What Doe described to his followers was that life on Earth is just like it's like a garden to grow your soul. and his cult, his organization, I should say, in his words, could teach them how to grow their souls by following his strict regimen. So he would monitor everything they would do with their lives. He would monitor everything they watch on TV, every book they would read, everything they would do, everything they would eat. He would have have eyes on it and would know exactly what they're doing. So he had a hand in everything that they did. And this was, as he said, his method of helping them grow their souls. When realistically, it's kind of like it's literally just him over their shoulders watching everything they do.
Just quickly, I don't know if you know this. Do you know if he was called Doe like John Doe, Jane Doe? Was it like a reference to that?
No. I mean there is an explanation to why he calls it, which
I'll let you get into that. I was just curious.
There is an explanation for it. I'll get into it at some point.
I'll let you continue.
So as he says, once the soul is developed, it's time to exit the earthly body. He would describe it as leaving this earth as there's nothing really to live for on earth. Life outside of living right now is what life actually is, essentially. And there's a whole bunch of shit with a comet and a spaceship, which I need to like warm you into it to understand it, because it's fucking bananas, right? Okay. And we're also going to be talking about a man named Rio D'Angelo, whose real name I have forgotten, but I'm sure I will remember. But his cultist name was Rio D'Angelo. He is a surviving member of the Heaven's Gate cult who didn't partake in the mass suicide because he felt he had a feeling that he was needed on Earth to spread the message of the cult.
Okay.
So to this day, he still believes in the cult, and I think him and another member, I believe, run a website that's still dedicated to spreading the message of the cult.
That's so creepy.
Yeah. Okay. So I will be talking about Marshall Applewhite, also known as Doe, just who he is, because he's kind of the most important factor in this story, right? Like, he's the cultist leader. He's the person who started this. He's essentially a mass murderer for what he did. Like, he essentially killed several people.
He's the bee's knees
through
story.
Really. So he was the son of a Presbyterian minister and a former soldier.
Presbyterian's the like real crazy one.
Yeah,
isn't
like
it? Very like full on one.
Yeah, like very like kind of
strict,
scary. I would say is what I would say. As I said, in the 1970s, his whole biblical prophecy extravaganza just began.
Extravaganza.
He was fired from the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas, over an alleged relationship with one of his male students. After this, he met Bonnie Nettles. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. She is a 44-year-old married nurse with an interest in theosophy. That's theosophy, I believe that's how you say it, and biblical prophecy, and they met in March 1972. Now, I'm going to be saying this word a lot. I'm not too sure how to pronounce it, but it's theosophy, I believe, theosophy. If I'm wrong, and this is pissing you off because I'm going to say this for like the next hour, I apologize.
How do you spell it?
Theosophy. It's like theosophy. So she was a believer in theosophy.
Nailed it.
Oh wow! Oh fuck yeah! There we go. How about that? There we go.
Nailed it.
I was
I
always
just like to confirm things.
yeah. So the whole theosophy religion was established in the 19th century in the United States by a Russian immigrant named Helena Blavatsky.
Nice.
And it draws its beliefs primarily from her writings. So it tells that basically it's an ancient and secretive brotherhood of spiritual adepts known as the Masters, who center around Tibet but are also found across the world. These Masters are believed to have great wisdom, supernatural powers, and it's believed that theosophists, it was believed that they were the ones who initiated the modern theosophical movement through their teachings and through Blavatsky. So this it's essentially it's like a similar concept where it's a form of like Catholicism and Christianity, but
yeah,
it's
like
stretched.
organized religion.
Yeah, but it's stretched to like beyond Jesus Christ and God. It's like there are masters who have this almost
It's more of like a
essential power.
spirituality.
Yeah. And very similarly to what we ended up with, theosophy teaches that the purpose of human life is spiritual emancipation and claims that the human soul undergoes reincarnation upon bodily death according to the process of karma. So this is something that she believes in, and he and teaches to Applewhite, which you can sort of see the signs of where the cult ends up when you read back onto this. So according to his writings, they both met at a hospital. He wrote that he feels like he had a connection to her and remembers her from something. And
like a past life or something.
Comes to the conclusion that he knew her from past life. And she convinces him that he had a divine assignment due to this revelation.
That's such a big like jump to make.
I know.
Be like, I recognize you.
A
It
past
must have been
life.
from my past life. Like,
When we were
babe,
butterflies.
you probably ran into her
Yeah,
at the
at the fucking
day.
supermarket.
Calm down.
So together they ponder the life of Saint Francis of Assisi and read works by authors including Helena Blavatsky and that whole theosophy teachings. They had a King James Bible with them. They studied several passages, including Christology, several different just works of a similar style of religion. And so they decided that they had been chosen to fulfill biblical prophecies. And they were given a high level mind to other people.
Okay.
They wrote in a pamphlet that they described Jesus' reincarnation as a Texan, a thinly veiled reference to Doe himself. So this is a huge thing because his whole belief in the Heaven's Gate cult is that he is a reincarnation of Christ, and the followers of the Heaven's Gate cult all have the same thing to say. They all believe that he is the second coming of Christ.
So he went from being a teacher to believing that he was the physical reincarnation of Jesus Christ.
He went from being a teacher who fucked his student.
Which is really where all good holy people start.
If I was to
The
join,
Pope? All the cardinals,
it's
like
kind
to
of
fuck
fucked
their
up
students.
because you look at this and you go, "Oh, this is so
Bad
fucking
joke.
stupid," and like this guy's a kiddie fiddler or whatever, and
That's
he's
such an inflated sense of grandiose. Like,
Mm.
I just can't see because I'm a millennial. So I feel like our generation as a whole just assumes that everything we do is shit. We've been raised with this No, but we have. Like, we've been raised with such a strong sense of, like, the imposter syndrome. I assume everything I make is terrible.
Yeah.
To assume that you are the literal physical reincarnation of Jesus Christ.
It's like, where do I get that confidence from?
Yeah,
How
give
can
me
I
some of that.
give me some of that? You have too much. You need to pass it on. If you believe you are Jesus Christ.
And it's also not being used in a constructive way either.
Yeah.
So just like pass it along to us.
Like, I'm going to kill 30 people along with myself. Like,
Yeah.
and that's because I'm the coming of Christ. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh dear.
So together, they concluded that they were the two witnesses described in the Book of Revelation, and occasionally visited churches and other groups to speak of their identities, often referring to themselves as the two or the UFO two. They believed that they would be killed and then restored to life, and in the view of others, transported onto a spaceship. This is dramatic pause. This is where they came up with
now you're just mixing things.
the UFO 2.
They're just like, they're like cherry pickers. They're just going into like, they're like, oh, we'll take something from the Bible.
But they were realists. They
from
knew
Catholicism,
that no one would
something
believe
from
them.
Some good
So
science fiction novels we read last week.
This spaceship event was referred as the demonstration, and it was to prove their claims.
Can you just like describe my face right now?
You are kind of face palming, but you're pinching your brows instead of face palming.
I didn't mean actually describe my face. I meant like
when you say describe my face, that's what that fucking means.
I meant like the expression on my face.
I don't know what the expression. That's what your expression was.
Oh my god.
What? The fuck do you mean?
Oh.
Read the sentence. No, don't read the whole sentence.
Read between the lines.
Okay. So, obviously, everyone thinks this is fucking bananas, including the church. As
you would.
And they're distraught that no one believes them. So, eventually, they're running out of ways to prove this to people, or to people to essentially prove this to, and a way to make this whole thing fruitful. So they decide it's time to contact the extraterrestrials, that they sought like-minded followers. So they published advertisements for meetings where they recruited disciples who they called the crew. At various events, they would represent beings from other planets, another planet, called the Next Level.
That's like so gangster sounding for what is the most white thing I've ever heard.
So they thought that those who agreed to take part in the experiment would be brought to a higher evolutionary level. So these next level demonstrations. So in 1975, during a group meeting with over 80 people, a person called Joan Culpepper's Studio City home, they shared a simultaneous revelation that they had been told that they were the two witnesses written in the Bible story of the end time. And this is where things start to get real, like end time apocalypse. We need to fucking leave now, essentially. And then later on in that year, the crew assembled at a hotel in Waldport, Oregon. After selling all worldly possessions and saying farewell to their loved ones, the group vanishes from the hotel and are never seen again. So
wait, they just disappear?
Just vanished. Over, I believe, 80 people.
I thought they committed suicide.
This is the This is 1975. In
Oh.
1997 was the Heaven's Gate cult. This is pre
Oh,
Heaven's
okay.
Gate.
We're still in the 70s. So
We're
they
still
just
in the 70s.
disappeared.
They just disappeared. On CBS Evening News that night, Walter Cronkite reported.
Cronkite.
Also, that is a very difficult name because. Oh no, sorry. I thought it had It sounds kind of like Cronkite.
Cronkite.
I don't
isn't
want
it?
to say that. Yeah.
Isn't it Cronkite?
Yeah, it's Cronkite. He reported that the group had disappeared in one of the very first national reports of the developing religious group. A score of persons has disappeared.
A score of persons has
persons.
disappeared.
It's a mystery
Shaking
whether
his
they've
jowls.
been taken onto so-called trip to eternity or simply been taken. So no one knows if they passed on or they just simply disappeared.
So have they still not been found to this day?
There's no
That's so
sightings of them.
spooky.
So this is what was reported, right? In reality, Applewhite, who we now know as Doe, and Nettles had arranged for the group to go underground.
Mm-hmm.
From that point on, Doe, and as she was referred to as T, as the two now call themselves, led the nearly 100-member crew across the country, sleeping in tents, bags, and begging in the streets.
Sounds like so much fun.
Evading detection by the authorities and media enabled the group to focus on Doe and T's words of them being a higher evolutionary level above humans. So they used a various array of aliases over the years, notably Bo and Peep and Doe and T. So Doe and T ended up being the main names they used. So nearly 100 people they led through tunnels, never to be seen again.
Wow.
So the group had a variety of names prior to the name that is referred to as Heaven's Gate, right? During this time, I believe it was called the Human Individual Metamorphosis, which is sounds like a real fucking crazy prog metal band or an album. So we'll skip it a bit further. They start to talk about what is referred to as bodily vehicles. So they would describe their human bodies as vehicles, and when they would pass on to the next life, they would be leaving their vehicles
On Earth.
on Earth.
Yeah.
So they didn't even revere them, they didn't even feel their bodies and their consciousness were necessary or really a thing. Their human bodies on Earth were just a vehicle of transportation and living. And when the time came, they would be able to pass on into their real lives. So throughout the 70s and 80s, their belief system developed around a cult of personalities. Membership grew. At some point, it was called Sheilaism. Jumping
Sounds like
forward,
something from the Outback Australia.
it does actually, doesn't it?
Sheilaism.
Many of their crew were from diverse backgrounds. Some trying to define themselves through spiritual means, combining different faiths, different cultures. Many of the same researchers note that not all of his crew were far left hippies or different people with alternative religious backgrounds. In fact, one of the recruits was a man named John Craig, who was a respected Republican running for the Colorado House of Representatives around the time of 1975. So this isn't just a bunch of random fucking nobodies hitchhiking on the side of the road.
Yeah,
These
they
are
had
real,
influential people.
normal fucking people
Yeah.
being recruited. It wasn't until the death of T, or Nettles, her real name, in 1985, and Applewhite's subsequent revision of the group's doctrines that the crew gained an eventual reputation as the cyberculture form of religious reform. So she passes on, and T is confused because he saw him and her as these prophets of a sort.
Yeah, so he didn't think she could die.
No. So then it kind of evolves into what was then developed into the Heaven's Gate cult. He kind of like leads the whole thing onto himself. In 1996, later on, many years later, members of her clan, T's clan, began renting a large home which they called the Monastery, which is a huge mansion in Santa Fe, I believe. Santa Fe in California. They paid $7,000 per month in cash. And then the same month, the group purchased an alien abduction insurance that would cover up to 50 members and would pay out $1 million per person should they be abducted by aliens.
How is that even a thing?
No idea. I'm sure any insurance company would be like, yeah, give me your money.
How do...
No idea.
I don't understand.
No idea. Okay, so this is where things really get fucking crazy. So on March 20th, it's unclear, 1997, Marshall Applewhite, also known as Doe, tapes himself in a tape called Doe's Final Exit, speaking of mass suicide and the only way to evacuate this Earth. After asserting everyone that a spacecraft was trailing this comet, that was a very famous comet in the 1997, comet Hale-Bopp, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
He refers to this comet as a sign that it's time to move on.
Right.
So when people are recruited to the cult, he tells them, if you see a sign, you can enter the cult, you can join the family, whatnot. This comet was a sign of now's the time. Like, we have to move on.
Yeah, it's time to rock and roll.
He refers to the event as the closure of Heaven's Gate. So this was sort of around the time where Heaven's Gate sort of becomes a bit... in preparation to this, each member videotapes their farewells.
Like to their family.
Actually, I think it was sent to surviving members of the cult. I would imagine maybe it was sent to their families.
Can you imagine how heartbreaking that would be?
Oh yeah, I mean, it probably would have been sent to their families, I imagine. But you can imagine how fucking hard, and the tapes were referred to as zero remorse or sadness or anything. Just, it's like, I'm graduating.
And they probably would have been like excited almost.
They were. It was. If you watch the tapes, essentially they all believe that it's a graduation of sorts. They don a black shirt with black pants and Nike Decades, or with a patch on their black shirts that say, it was the iconic Heaven's Gate away team patch, the triangle, baseball style patch. So they treated it all like a graduation.
Yeah, they're wearing like a uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You sip that wine.
My throat's a bit dry. And on that day, they make a concoction of, I believe it was applesauce, pudding, vodka, and it was a drug called where did I write that? It's a very hard drug to say. Phenobarbital, which is a barbiturate that is fatal in large doses. So this mixture, essentially, it's like a punch. They all take turns and shifts drinking it within the mansion, and they find somewhere to lie down. There's like mattresses everywhere. I believe they pulled the purple drapes, the iconic purple drapes, over their upper torsos, and they cover up their torsos and their heads, and they just never woke up ever again.
That's so sad.
I mean, you can imagine like believing that, I'm going to, I'm going to be alive in a different form, when realistically they're just going to sleep and never waking up ever again.
Yeah.
39 people, 21 women, and 18 men between the ages of 26 and 72 died in 3 separate groups over three successive days, with the remaining participants cleaning up after each prior group's deaths.
Cleaning up? What would there to be clean?
I believe they removed their bodies, and their bodies were later cremated.
Oh, okay.
I'm not too sure whether it was them who cremated them.
Very polite of them.
Yeah. So the suicides were groups of 15, and then 9. So the 3 successions were 15, 9, between March 22 and March 26, supposedly. Among the dead was a man named Thomas Nichols, who is the brother of Nichelle Nichols, who was best known for her role as Uhura in the original Star Trek series. The leader, Applewhite, Doe, was the third to last member to die. 2 people remained after him, and they were the only ones found with bags over their heads, who I believe died from asphyxiation instead of...
Maybe there wasn't enough poison left?
I believe so. Before the last of the suicides, FedEx packages were sent to numerous Heaven's Gate affiliates, or former affiliates. In the case of Rio D'Angelo, who, if you remember me talking, he was a man who left the cult because he believed that his purpose on Earth was to spread the message of the cult.
Yeah.
And at least one media outlet, I believe the BBC department, received one of the FedEx packages that contained the tapes of the farewells and Beau's last tape ever. So again, the final days of all this fucking escapade in 1997, D'Angelo, who was the former member of the cult, receives a tape with the farewells and Doe's final exit. It contains a letter stating, amongst other things, and I quote, "We have exited our vehicles just as we have entered them." And from that point, he knew that everyone he ever knew in that cult was gone. So all of his friends, everyone he knew.
That's so sad.
And you would think he would have some sort of resemblance of remorse, or some I'm sad.
Or snap out of it.
He believes that they did the right thing. So he believes that they are now living in a higher state.
He's still alive, did you say?
He's still alive, yeah. I believe so.
So he believes that, to this day?
To this day.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Wow.
I need to show you too. This is an image of what they believe when you pass life on Earth.
Yeah.
And you are transported from, keep in mind, a UFO
Yeah.
to, I believe, a separate planet. You are reincarnated as a different species. This is the species this is what you will look
Okay,
like.
I'm going to describe it. Okay, so it's like it's like a human-ish face with really, really big eyes that are completely black, a nose that kind of looks like Ralph Fiennes in Harry Potter, and then a completely bald, big, bulbous
huge
head.
Like they're very,
and like the color of Casper the Friendly Ghost.
they're very generous with the shape of the head. Like they give themselves fucking humongous brains.
Yeah, is that because their brains are so big?
Yeah, because they're so smart.
Not gonna lie, while we've been recording this, we have our TV. It's not on. It's just. It's not playing anything. It's just on. It's just on the YouTube screen, and there is this video of chocolate cake, and I want cake so bad right now, so bad.
You need help.
Side note. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
I knew a little bit about them, but I didn't know all the UFO stuff.
Yeah, it's all very heavily based around this whole extraterrestrial thing.
Very like Scientology-esque.
Yeah, it got sort of cemented with the comet in 1997. That was kind of like, I guess, the nail in the coffin with that whole theory. So just to wrap up my whole thing about the Heaven's Gate cult, D'Angelo receives this tape and the letter, and gives an anonymous tip to the San Diego County Sheriff's Department at 3:15 p.m. on March 26, suggesting that they check out the mansion where they all committed suicide.
Oh, it was too late at that stage, was it?
He actually went to the mansion before he did so, and just to see if they actually did it. And sure enough, he walks in there, and everyone's bodies are lying down under. He's calling out names and checking everyone. They're all dead, and he said he could tell by the smell that everybody was dead.
That's so gross.
Once he left the mansion,
So
he decided
creepy.
to give an anonymous tip to the sheriff department to tell them that these people are fucking dead within a huge mansion.
Wow.
Supposedly, the mansion was paid for by an internet building service that the group took a part of.
Huh.
It's called I think it was
So
Higher
random.
Purpose, I believe.
That's so strange.
That's how they paid for everything to do with the cult.
Cults always have like weird affiliations.
Yeah, like a weird side business. Like they believe
they're gonna make money somehow.
Yeah, they believe in a higher purpose and that they're better than everyone else, but still people need websites.
Squarespace.
Yeah, fuck. Huge business. Maybe Squarespace is a cult.
Squarespace is a cult.
Yeah, they are a cult. They're getting to all the fucking people like Binging with Babish, and they're getting to
cult.
the popular people to join.
They're gonna start trying to make us drink the Kool-Aid. Oh, here's the fat little cat coming to join.
Yeah. Hey, Pi, want to join the podcast? But yeah, that was my kind of, I guess, the early insight to what led to the Heaven's Gate cult. There was a lot of steps along the way.
Yeah, I enjoyed
A
that.
lot of
Well done.
milestones.
Good story.
I mean, it's kind of interesting when you learn about these like groups and cults like the Manson family and Waco and all that, and like what leads them to the point that they get to.
Yeah.
And it's literally just, it's when you learn about the people who join the cults, they're people who are easily to manipulate, and B, people who want something different with their lives.
Yeah.
Like nearly all the people that you watch the tapes of, they're all people like, it's a godsend, finally something right happening in life. Like even D'Angelo himself joined after being divorced and being distraught from the
Yeah,
divorce.
they were
of
like
his life.
broken people looking for something to bring them
Exactly,
back
and
together.
that's how you get these people
and
into
that's
the
why it's so
system.
messed up.
Even Doe himself was somewhat of a distraught man and found these answers through, I am the second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm going through all this.
I'm awesome.
Yeah. But it's the
Yeah.
same thing with each and every kind of cult and organization like this. Is you notice that whole draw that they get to these second coming of Christ figure people is that they're powerless people.
Yeah.
Really nothing going for them and no sense of control of their life on earth.
Yeah.
So they get sucked into these systems.
It gives them, I think that's a huge reason why so many people like religion or cults in general.
Yeah.
Is it gives you a purpose and it gives you an answer to questions that you can't normally possibly answer.
Obviously, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but I find a lot of similarities between cults like this and just modern day religion. In the sense that people try to find answers for things they can't possibly answer.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's the reason why religion was sort of popularized in the first place was it was an answer. It was an answer to the questions that no one really knew how to answer.
Yeah, 100%.
How
100%.
how do mushrooms grow out of the ground after?
How does the sky become light during the day and dark? Yeah, 100%.
How does water fall from the sky?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I've gone on for long enough.
Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
How long have we been going for?
I'd say maybe like an hour,
Okay.
I believe.
It's going to be a long one, people. Buckle in. Well, my story is a little bit of a bummer.
We're all here for
I mean, they're all going to be a bit of a bummer, to be honest. So I'm going to tell my story and then I'm going to end with a little bit of trivia. And if you can guess my trivia question, I am going to give you so much money because you're never going to guess it.
Who, me individually or just the listener?
Well, no, you individually, because a listener
really?
can Google things. So you're not allowed to, if I say you pick your phone up.
So I have to guess what?
I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
At the end of the at the end of the session.
Okay, at the end of the session.
So today I'm going to be talking about Robert Hansen, which was a serial killer. When I started reading about him, I thought I'd never heard of him. And then as I started reading more, I realized that I have listened to a podcast about him before.
Kind of his feats are more popular than
which
he is.
was like a little bit of a bummer, realizing that I did know about it, but it's fine. I had fun researching it anyway. So I'm going to be talking about Robert Hansen, or the Butcher Baker.
Ooh.
So Bobby, I'm gonna call
Bobby
him
Boy.
Bobby Boy. He was born
Bobby
in
the Butcher Baker.
try saying that 5 times fast.
Bobby the Butcher Baker. Bobby the Butcher Baker.
Well, that's pretty good.
Bobby the Butcher Baker. I'm a rapper,
So he was
man.
born in 1939. So we're going a little bit back in time as well. So like many of our friends that we talk about in this podcast, he had a pretty horrible childhood.
Yeah.
His dad was an asshole. He showed his son little to no affection, yet Hansen actually still idolized his dad and planned to follow his career as a baker.
Oh.
So as a child, Bobby had a debilitating stutter. He was skinny and he was riddled with facial acne. Because of this, he was very self-isolated, and obviously the ladies were not a huge fan of his.
Oh, yeah.
In his childhood, big game hunting became his solace because obviously it's a solo sport. It's out in the open, big wide spaces. He doesn't have to deal with people, and also it gives you a huge sense of power and control.
Yeah, it's a good escape for someone like that.
Yeah.
You know?
He finished high school with no issues, enrolled in the army, and then served 1 year before being discharged.
That's amazing because it's another thing that we see in like similarities
Lots
between
of army people.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's not just the like disconnection with like your mother or your father or like, you know, troubling childhoods or head injuries as we discussed last episode. It's the army.
I think it's a rage thing. Like these men have this rage that they're trying to find somewhere to put it.
Yeah. But it's always post all those things like troubling childhood, army, and head trauma.
Yeah.
That they
Head trauma is the one I find the most interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So in 1960, at age 21, he marries for the first time. But then shortly after, he's sent to jail for 3 years for burning down a school bus garage.
Oh, okay.
He's sent to prison and diagnosed with multiple mental health conditions, including bipolar and schizophrenia.
Oh, yeah.
He revealed to the psychiatrist while he was in jail that the reason he torched the garage was he had sought to take revenge in some way on the school he went to.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean...
Yeah. He also revealed while he was in there that he often imagined doing vicious things to the girls who had rejected him in school.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's sentenced to 3 years, but he only ends up serving 20 months.
What the fuck? What?
Yeah.
How does that work?
And he was released in 1962 when he marries again and they have 2 children together.
It's fascinating that this guy wants to take revenge on high school for the women that rejected him, yet he's marrying with little to no resistance.
Yeah, well, I guess these women are liking him. It's the ones that didn't like him that he had the problem with. So in 67, so 5 years after he's released from jail and marries his woman, him and his family they make a big move to Alaska.
Oh, Alaska.
And for him, Alaska was a dream come true because it's isolated, it's quiet, and lots of hunting opportunities.
Yeah, it's a good place to get away from the FBI.
He also fulfilled his dream to become a baker, opening his own bakery. Oh my God, I can't talk tonight. Opening his own bakery while his wife Darla became a teacher. Hanson was mentioned as being quiet and reserved but very friendly, and they were actually really respected members of the town community, both him and his family. Okay. Their business was really successful, and when he wasn't working, he spent his time hunting. He was amazing at it and respected by all the other hunters and actually broke a bunch of hunting records. Despite life being roses?
What is that?
I can't talk.
A bed of roses? A bed of
I
roses?
meant to say roses, but despite being roses. So Hanson couldn't let go of little Betty White, that's what I imagine she's called, who made fun of him at school.
Ah, okay.
So I don't actually know what her
little
name
Betty
is.
White.
That's just,
Imagine
I imagine
if it was
she's
actual Betty White. Betty White's calling this dude
and
a
he would
loser.
often fantasize about taking revenge out on the girls who rejected him. So side note, in the 1970s, Alaska was going through a huge economic boom because of the transatlantic pipeline, which had just been installed. It brought heaps of workers, so like oil workers, and then obviously the town needed more stores and stuff. And then where there's people and workers, there's of course sex, drugs, rock and roll, and lots of sex workers come to town.
Nice.
So in 1971, sex workers started disappearing from 4th Avenue, which was home to all the seedy bars and strip clubs and where the sex workers would normally walk up and down. That was their
territory.
Space. In 1971, Robert Hansen unsuccessfully tries to kidnap an 18-year-old Susie Heppard.
18.
Yeah, by approaching her at gunpoint and saying, "Shut up, sweetheart, or I'll blow your head off." So she starts screaming, and then her housemate hears her screaming and calls the police. So he's caught and charged with assault with a deadly weapon, but not kept in prison. So he's not remanded. He's let go. Just days later, he abducts a topless dancer who I could not find the name of in any of the articles, which I thought was really sad.
Maybe there's no record of it.
Maybe. He takes her to a cabin in Kenai Peninsula where he rapes her. Then on the way back to Anchorage, which is where he lives, so Anchorage in Alaska, he stops the car, points the gun at her and tells her to get out and run. She refuses to and begs him not to kill her, which he eventually relents to and actually lets her go, which was another big thing that he did. He let a lot of his victims go, which is weird.
Wow.
He wrote down all her family names, phone numbers and addresses and told her to not tell anyone or he'd kill them all. She doesn't say anything until Christmas Day when the news reports a college freshman is found dead in a ravine near where he'd taken her to rape her.
Right.
So she decides she can't stay silent anymore because she thinks it's him that's done this. Reports and identifies Hanson to the police. He's arrested and finally charged on top of the initial charge for trying to kidnap the other woman. So they've now got enough to actually put him in prison.
So what are they charging him with the second time? With murder?
Kidnapping and rape.
Oh, okay.
But because the dancer does what she does and because she takes recreational drugs, her credibility is ripped to shreds on the stand in trial. Hanson, being an upstanding member of the community, also has his well-to-do friends plead for his sake.
Oh my God.
So Hanson only serves 5 years for assaulting Susie Shepherd and none for assaulting the topless dancer. But having been in the prison system before and understanding how it works, he actually manipulates the parole board and only serves 3 months.
For 5 year sentence.
For a 5-year sentence.
Wow.
So specific dates of the murders aren't really available, but basically there's a big 12-year period between 1971 and 1983 where he's murdered at least 17 women that they've managed to find and identify. But
there's possibly more.
Well, he's murdered at least 17, but he's raped about 30 on top of that.
Jesus.
Yeah. So most murders occur in the second, like the later period of that 12-year period. As a lot of women, he would kidnap, rape, and then release. Again, writing down their families' details and scaring the girls into not telling anyone.
Yeah.
So in 1976, he's arrested again after stealing a chainsaw from a hardware store. What's fucked up is for stealing the chainsaw. I can't speak. For stealing the chainsaw, he's also sentenced to 5 years in jail. So in terms of the Alaskan
what the fuck is going on
prison
with you,
system,
Alaska?
they think attempting to kidnap someone and stealing a chainsaw deserves the same
stealing them
prison
chainsaws.
sentence. Despite being arrested twice since he's moved to Anchorage, he's still seen as an upstanding member of the community and the, quote, friendly neighborhood baker.
God.
So he only serves 16 months of that second.
You can
5
imagine
years.
these people when all the shit goes down.
How do you not
That'd be like,
have your suspicions?
how the fuck were we so wrong?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah, that becomes a big part of it later in the story. So in 1982, after he's released from prison the second time, his business is booming and doing really well. So he's got some cash saved up. So he purchases a 2-person plane and gets his plane license. Pilot license. That's the word.
plane license.
Plane license. This plane he uses to fly the women he used to kidnap to his cabin in the Nick River area. Before doing that, he would generally take his victims to their old house on the opposite side of town where he kept his guns, animal trophies, and souvenirs from previous victims locked in the basement.
Creepy.
Super creepy. There's photos of the basement online and it's just like this weird brick cellar with
What's his name again?
Robert Hansen. This weird brick cellar with like animal heads all over the wall. It's really creepy.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's super creepy.
That is terrifying.
Yeah. So in this house is where he would tie them up, rape them for several hours, then force them into his plane where he'd fly them to Nick River. There he'd blindfold them and let them go in the wilderness, hunting them around the forest before eventually shooting them, burying them, taking a trophy, and marking on his aviation map where he'd buried them.
Christ.
This is the thing I found really like interesting and creepy about him, that he'd like let them go and hunt them for sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Fuck.
so this is where it gets better because he gets caught. So in 1983, Hanson kidnapped 17-year-old Cindy Paulson. She's a prostitute. He offers her $200 for her services. Cindy has quoted the man as being thin, having acne scars and a stutter, and saw nothing threatening about him, as you would, because he's the fucking friendly neighborhood baker. However, as she got in the door and oh my God, I can't speak. As she got in the car and closed the door, Hanson slips handcuffs on her wrists and points a gun at her head. He then takes her to the house in Old Harbour, rapes her for several hours, then ties her to a wooden post by a chain around her neck, and he falls asleep. Next morning, he had planned to fly her out in his plane and do his normal shittery.
Of course.
So in the morning, he takes her in his car to the airstrip where his plane was, and then he leaves her handcuffed in the back seat while he goes to do plane things. I don't know how to fly a plane. I'm assuming you have to set stuff up before you can fly it. I don't know.
Of course.
So seeing her opportunity, because he's distracted and has his back to her while she's in the car, and she's handcuffed at the front, which is important because I don't think she would have been able to do it if she was handcuffed from the back. So she crawls into the driver's seat, opens the door on the opposite side that he is, and legs it. Hanson doesn't notice that she's out of the car until it's too late. He tries to pursue her, but wearing only a shirt and underwear, she makes it to the road and flags down a trucker. The man, Richard Yount? I don't want to say his name wrong because he's a solid dude. Richard Yount. Yount. Yount.
Just Yount, yeah. I'd say
Richard
Yount.
Yount drives Cindy to an inn, and despite her begging him not to, he reports it to the police. The police go to the inn, remove Cindy's handcuffs. She then tells them everything, identifies the type of plane, and describes the room that she was kept in. They find the plane, and of course it's registered to Robert Hansen. And this is where it gets a little bit fucked up. So, having identified Hansen, he's then implicated in many of the missing or murdered women in the area. Although Hansen denies everything, and he also gets well-to-do people from town to say that they had seen him or been with him on the day of Cindy's kidnap and assault. So it then becomes a he said, she said against a well-known townsman and a teenage sex worker. And initially, all the charges are dropped.
Fuck, no.
Yeah. So shortly after another body's found, our good mate, John Douglas from Mindhunter, the real dude.
Oh, the real dude?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
He gets brought in by the head sheriff of the town.
Oh, sick. I love this dude.
He gives a profile, without knowing Robert Hansen, mind you, he gives a profile saying the killer would have facial features which he was possibly embarrassed of, which is his acne scars, possibly a speech impediment, and would have had bad experiences with women in the past, and he had to be a skilled hunter, keeping trophies from both animals and victims, and in order to reach remote areas where bodies were found, he would have had to have a plane.
Fuck you. That guy is awesome.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So this information from John Douglas combined with
evidence.
Cindy's statement, the girl that got away.
Yep.
They finally have enough evidence to get a warrant to search Robert Hansen's place. They find trophies of both animals and his victims, like John Douglas said they would be. They find his aviation map with all the X's marked on it where he buried his bodies. They also find a rifle hidden in his attic with shell casings matching those found near the bodies.
Of course, yeah.
So when questioned further, Robert's community friends who'd previously lied and given him an alibi admit that they've made it all up.
Right.
So once this all starts to fall into place, Robert Hansen is questioned again, and he collapses under pressure and confesses to the murder of 17 women. But the map that he has at least 24 X's on it. So they think it's more than that. But he's never admitted. He admitted to 17 and they found 12 bodies.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's over 20 X's.
Yeah. So the good news, Hansen was sentenced to 476 years in prison. And third time lucky, he didn't manage to get out this time. And in 2014, he died in prison.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the LaPlante story where it's like the system
failed. Completely failed.
Completely failing.
Because, and that was part of his thing, was he knew that he never really targeted like well-to-do people in town. It was always like exotic dancers or sex workers. Because no one gave a shit.
Yeah.
No one noticed when they went missing. And if, like in Cindy's case, if they did manage to escape, no one believed them.
Which is fucked up because like you can say no one gives a shit about what happens to them, but they're still the human beings. And
Yeah,
we have
there's
these
still
systems
people.
in place
And they were all young.
because we want to avoid this happening.
They were all like between 17 and like
Yeah.
25.
Which matches the whole thing that John Douglas said, is that he wants to get revenge on people from high school. So
Yeah.
he's taking revenge on people who he would imagine are of the age of being in high school.
Yeah. So
Fuck, man.
this is where my fun fact and your trivia comes in.
Okay.
There is a movie called Frozen Ground about this man.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Cuzak plays Robert Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Cage plays the main sheriff, pardon
Mhm.
me. And Cindy Paulson, the sex worker who got away, I will give you $1 million if you can guess who plays her. Because you'll never guess it.
Really?
Because it's just
why
the
would I never
weirdest
guess it?
thing. When I read it, I was like, what the fuck?
What does Cindy look like?
I don't know. I didn't actually look at a photo of her. I'll find
Does
that
she
one
look
now.
like the actor? If you look it up, and because is it one of those cases where they just get like a kind of actor just to play the girl, or is it like someone who genuinely looks like her?
She has like no. She looks nothing like the actress.
When was the movie made?
2013.
Ah. Oh, tough. And it's just so bizarre.
It's just
It makes
it's
no
so
sense.
strange.
Um,
Just take a wild guess because you're not gonna get it. Do you just want me to show you?
Cameron Diaz.
No. So this is Cindy Paulson in the movie.
Right.
Like the last person you would expect. For everyone listening, it's Vanessa Hudgens.
What?
Like Vanessa Hudgens plays an exotic dancer.
You know
that
what's
gets
funny is I
kidnapped.
almost said Demi Lovato.
Oh yeah.
It's not too far off. What the fuck?
So strange. Like you read Robert Cusack, Nicholas Cage, Vanessa Hudgens.
She looks like a Russian prostitute as well.
Yeah.
Come from Russia.
But Robert Hansen, like to give you some perspective, he just looks
a
like
regular baker dude.
regular dude. Like he's kind of skinny. You can tell he's got
the kind
some.
of guy who would come to fix your plumbing if you had an issue with.
Not
your
even that.
pipes.
Like he's the guy that is the dad of your best friends. Like he
Yeah.
just looks so nothing.
Regular.
So regular.
It's a Ted Bundy thing. Yeah.
But even Ted Bundy was like attractive. Like Robert Hansen just is nothing. Like he just looks like any dude.
It's kind of crazy how some people take these like things that happen to them as kids, and like on top of other experiences they have, such as like trauma, and things they experience growing up. They take these life experiences, like girls making fun of them, and then they develop it into this unhealthy murdering habit. Not even really murdering habit, just
yeah,
torture
it's kind of crazy.
and inflicting like a being a sadist, really. And then other people would just take it and be like, "Oh, I need to better myself. I need to lose weight, or I need to do this." It's fucking crazy.
Yep. So that's Robert Hansen.
My God.
Stand up, dude. I think that's so, like, there's, not that it makes it any better or any worse, but I feel like it's one thing to strangle someone or shoot them. It's another thing
hunt
to
them down.
let them go. Because can you imagine as the girls as well? Like,
Yeah.
you'd have that hope.
Do you think he let them go just for the sensation of tormenting them for the rest of their lives?
I think it was the hunt for him.
Oh,
You mean the ones
that he actually legitimately let go?
Well, in the article I was reading, it said that he thought that he was genuinely too afraid to kill them.
Oh, okay.
Which is possibly why, like, I'm just taking a stab in the dark. The ones that he did kill, it was much more of a, I'm going to shoot you from a distance, like an animal.
Yeah. Because when you think about it, it's like with the the Son of Sam killings I was talking about last time, where he goes from shooting people in the passenger side of a car, kind of from a distance outside of a car. It's kind of different. Like, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. You're not looking at what you're shooting at. You're just killing someone. And then he goes from that to killing someone point blank with the revolver. It's
messed up.
When you think about it, it's not to justify it at all, but it's like two different things.
Yeah.
There's like, it's like viewing going to a zoo and viewing like a tiger from afar and then getting up close to one and feeding it. It's two different sensations.
Yeah.
Completely different. So I'm sure that that's why he did what he did, because he was scared of actually the act of killing, which is bizarre because he raped them.
Well, that was definitely a taking back his quote power thing from high school.
Yeah. Which is weird too, because he could have just paid them to have sex with them.
Yeah, but then it's like they're still winning.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know.
Fucking heavy.
I'm not a psychologist. It is a little bit, isn't it?
Very heavy. Wow.
Yeah, and that's the Butcher Baker. I don't really get the name. He didn't really butcher anyone, but, it sounds cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a dumb name, to be honest.
Like
the Butcher Baker.
The Hunter Baker.
Or just the Baker.
Yeah.
Like,
the Baker.
Yeah, he is the Baker. When I think of Butcher Baker, it's just like it's like a last name of someone.
When I think Butcher Baker, I think the Butcher, the Baker, the candlestick maker.
Yeah. Which doesn't relate to the killings at all. To me, it's like a last name that a woman didn't want to have just her husband's name. She wanted Butcher and Baker.
Yeah, it's gotta be hyphenated.
Butcher Baker.
Not taking his name.
Butcher
Baker
Baker
gotta be
Kilgore.
hyphenated.
Yeah.
Should we end this on something
on a positive note?
Funny.
Is there anything positive that has happened, or anything?
I mean, there's plenty of positive things that have happened. We're healthy. We're here. It's sounding like Australia is possibly going to start slowly lifting some restrictions soon.
Yeah, it seems like the cases have dropped dramatically.
So we've kicked ass at this quarantine thing, apparently.
Yeah, I mean,
who knew Australians are lazy as fuck and like to stay home?
It's probably not a good thing, because we want to get another episode of the Born Millennials podcast done soon. But I haven't been reading the news that much. It's so depressing.
But also, there's nothing else to read.
Yeah, it's just another. Well, for a time being, it was just like a new 2 more cases of the coronavirus have been identified.
Yeah.
3 more cases. An entire fucking cruise ship of people have coronavirus. It's like, fuck, shut up. I need to fucking detox from this shit.
Yeah. No, it's a bit much. It'll be nice when life can.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like it's died down a bit to the point. Like, I think I've gotten one in the past 2 weeks of like an article being like, there's been a new death, and it's someone who already had it, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think we've managed to keep our deaths under 100, which is awesome.
Yeah, which is like 0 would be optimal, of course.
Well, of course. But I think everyone knew it wasn't going to be something where no one died, sadly. But thank you so much to our health care people. If you're listening to this,
goddamn superheroes.
You wanted to escape from COVID-19, the horrors of that, by listening to the horrors of Robert Hansen.
Yeah. I mean,
you guys are doing a bang up fucking job, and thank you for keeping everyone safe and healthy.
Yeah. Everyone should buy these people beers when it's all over.
Yes. We'll start a GoFundMe for beers for healthcare workers.
Yeah, beer funds for healthcare workers.
Oh, dear. Well, I don't have anything else to talk about. I feel like this was our weak point in the last episode as well. Neither of us really know how to wrap it up.
Yeah, I guess I can plug.
I think we've been going for 2 hours. I think we should probably.
All right. Well,
take a chill pill.
Like I said, April 9, check out.
You're going for the plug anyway?
I'm going for the plug anyway. April 9th, check out Juno on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on Instagram at juno.exe. And then just type in Juno on Facebook for our band's profile. We'll be posting a music video on the 9th, and then on the 13th we have a single coming out that'll be on Spotify, Apple Music, and all that. And yeah, please check that out because I hate my fucking job and I want to become a professional musician, and I'd be fucking sick. So make it happen, bitches.
All right. Well, that was another episode of the yet to be named True Crime Podcast.
The unnamed podcast.
Yeah. Cool. We'll catch you next week.
Catch you next time. Take it easy, mofos.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.